Okay, I want to wish you all a very warm welcome. My name is Edine Russel. I'm the editor-in-chief of ELLE Netherlands. And we are here for the talk during Fashion Film Festival Amsterdam. The talk with a really cool name, I think, Shake That Fashion System. We know all here and in the fashion world knows that something needs to change. Things are moving, things are shaking, but it's a really long process and we're well, I won't even say in the middle of it. I really think we're only barely scratched the surface of it, but we are making steps. So what we decided at ELLE, together with the people from the film festival, we are going to approach this subject through three very different topics, but they all come together. First topic, we will talk about with Ilse Cornelissens from GRAANMARKT 13, so from the store, like the concept store, so a shop, to call it very simple. To discuss it with Katrien van Leeuwen from the Amsterdam Fashion Institute. And we talk about the supply chain with Klevant from Fashion for Good. But Ilse is not here yet because Amsterdam and I think also Antwerp is code red due to COVID, so we can't travel back and forward, so she decided to stay there. But we practiced earlier, not me, but we practiced a technique, and I'm gonna have this conversation with her through Zoom.
I'm here.
Yeah. I love it. I have a bit of feeling of a James Bond movie, you know, when you get your assignment on the screen and you have to...
Yeah, yeah, for me also. But it's okay.
Yeah, so I hear you in my back. I see you over there. You don't see me, but maybe we've just waved at each other. Can you tell me a little bit, because now you're in Antwerp, are you at GRAANMARKT or are you at home?
Yes, I'm here in the apartment of GRAANMARKT 13, so here we are.
So can you tell a little bit about you and what GRAANMARKT is exactly?
Yes, well, GRAANMARKT 13 is actually, I started it together with my husband 10 years ago. And we bought this very empty left building on a square where like many buildings were for sale. And we reshaped the building together with a great architect from Antwerp, Vincent van Duysen, and we turned it into actually our house, because the top floor is an apartment where we used to live, and everything that comes from the house is actually something that fits in our lifestyle. So we host a restaurant, a store, and now the apartment is also available for rent per night. And everything that you see, touch, feel, and experience is all something that fits in a lifestyle that we very much believe in. And in our store we sell several things. So it's not only about fashion, but it used to be a big part fashion, but we did some moves. Our store is very much, we changed it a couple of years ago because with our restaurant we were focusing so much on no waste. And our restaurant is really all about vegetables and about listening to what Mother Earth brings us. And we're working very seasonal. And that was something that we were doing already for years. But there was a moment, which was around 4.5 years ago, we were questioning ourselves how no waste is our store. And then that was quite a big moment for us, because we kind of realized that especially fashion, all the fashion that we were selling, was devaluated after a very short time. That was a moment that we realized that if we would like to change it, we should just, as simple as that, never do any item in our store on sale anymore. And that was quite an easy decision. But of course, then you start to realize, okay, but then what? How are we going to compete or keep on competing with the others if our collections will be on sale in other stores? And that was really the moment that we decided, okay, then we should make new decisions in the brands that we carry. And especially the bigger brands. Of course, you're kind of forced in a way to buy more and more in bigger brands because, of course, commercially, that's what sells and that's what they deliver early. So they always have a better sell-through.
Ilse, are you forced by the brands or forced by the whole system that's the way it works? Or are you forced to buy more from a brand?
I think it's both. It's a system. It's of course the system, but it's also you kind of start to depend on things that sell and brands that sell and the brands that grow very hard or are very popular at a certain moment. At that time we were working with Isabelle Marant and well, we all know that she became very big and very popular. But of course, how could we sell a brand like Isabelle Marant, which will be on sale online on every channel and also in other stores in the same city? So that's why we decided. Yeah, it's not that you're really forced, but it's always. Yeah, they have more collections. Marni at that time was selling 6 collections at a year, and you're kind of forced to buy the 6 collections, otherwise you lose the brand. So there is some pressure, of course, from the brands, but there's also some pressure because simple as that, you just sell.
And then you had to, so did you talk with the brands, like this is what we want to do?
Yes, so the moment that we decided it was 1 week up front of Fashion Week. And we are very loyal clients, so it was quite a heavy moment for me also to just go there and say, okay, listen, Isabelle Marant, we're not going to buy you anymore. It was I was really afraid of doing that. But in the end, it turned out to be the right decision. And we managed. We really managed after a while. So Sorry, are you selling less brands now or different? Did you sort of came up with something else than Isabelle? Yes, so we are buying less, also selling less, but we're just you buy differently. So when I buy, I always look in our stock, like what do we still have? There's so many pieces that you can just keep it back for a while and then put it back. It always, especially when you have collections from a brand, it kind of always fits with each other. Also like a next season. So we really play with that, and we really try to not show everything in our store. We only hang like 10 to 12 pieces on a rack, and every week
you change that.
Hang.
Yeah. And what about your customers? How did they respond? Because it's a different experience, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, it's a different experience also for us. And we really, that was a big challenge because, of course, our staff was very behind our decision. But I really tried to explain them that the reactions would be very difficult to handle. Because, of course, people don't understand what you're going to do and why you're doing it. And why everything is on sale in the rest of the world and why you are not doing that. And that's why we came up with the idea which was actually an idea that Wendela van Dijk in Holland was already doing. She was organizing these second-hand sales, which I always thought was a brilliant idea. So I called Wendela and I said, can I maybe steal your idea and use it in our store? Because that would be, it's kind of a tool to explain people why you are doing things. So from that moment, we started collecting once a season second-hand clothing from our clients. And we would empty the full store for 3 days and only sell second-hand clothing from our clients. And they would get a voucher for the amount that they would sell their clothing for. And then the rest they can pick up later. So it's something that you give back to your clients when you explain them, like you were not doing things on sale anymore. But what we do, and we do it for the reason because we want people to think better before they buy something. We really want them to not buy 3 pieces just because it's on sale and you get 70% if you buy 3, because then you will always buy too much.
So Ilse, you are re-educating your customers in a nice, gentle way, or do they think you're crazy?
Yeah, they were thinking we were crazy. And we even got very mad clients. And that's why if you do something like this, you really need to prepare your staff to be behind the idea, to understand the philosophy of the idea, and also why you are doing it and what you're trying to achieve. And what we're trying to achieve is actually very easy. We're just trying to not devaluate the whole process of a piece that is designed by someone, then someone is producing it, then we have the whole shabam of Fashion Week, then there's transporters, there's so many people in a chain working on this piece, and it's such a shame that we're throwing away for like nothing all those pieces after 1 or 2 months.
Ilse, I think, by the way, I think it's amazing what you do, and the fun thing is that actually when you explain it, it sounds so logical that it's really the world upside down, that the other system we perceive as normal, while this is of course very normal. I'm just thinking, and maybe that's a very Dutch question, you know where I'm going. So do you make enough money? Can you keep this up?
Yes, we can. The first year was very hard because the sales they dropped, of course. But then in the end, when you start to know how to play this game, I don't buy that much anymore. And it makes my life as a buyer very simple. I was already in Corona for 4 years, I think, because I don't have this pressure all the time anymore. What we do have is that it sometimes makes it a bit more complicated because you're not always the loyal client that buys every season the same budget. But our brands that we work with really, they like what we do, so they really
respect
are
for the brands as well. It's respect for the brands.
Yes.
Well. And
yes,
are you, because you said Wendela van Dijk is also doing this or similar, not maybe with, but I mean with the second hand or the vintage selling. Are you inspiring other stores as well, or are you and Wendela the other ones that are so aware?
I didn't see it that much yet, but I do feel, but it's not true because there's also a lot of brands now doing it. And for example, I remember that I was doing a tour for the team of Bon Marché here in the building. They were a bit bored fashion people, but when I was explaining this story, I totally got her attention. And she was like, this is a good idea. This is really a good idea. So, you know, I said, well, we're happy to share the idea. You know, I think it's if we are all trying to change this system, I really believe we should do it more, and we should help each other, and we should share these ideas and try to make everything better and try to re-educate what we destroyed with fashion, because it really feels so, I don't know, I feel sorry for everyone who's working on it. In the end, it's just disrespectful to the whole chain.
I think it's very visionary what you do, and I hope that it will, you know, people will follow you in this. And please keep telling this story. I have one last question. Is this? Do you have other ideas? Do you have more plans for the store? Like, oh, maybe we can do this as well, or that, or.
Yeah, well, what we're working on very much now is that we try to create scarcity and moments. I think that's the most important for our store, to keep yourself attractive and to keep people still coming to you. And so what we do now sometimes is that we empty the store for a certain brand. We did it, for example, with the Dutch brand Extreme Cashmere last winter. And we gave the full floor to Extreme Cashmere. And in just 3 days, you can do the turnover which you normally do in a whole season. So it's quite spectacular if you give a floor to and show a lot, because that's also sometimes it's a bit difficult when you buy. You only buy a certain amount of pieces. So it's kind of sometimes a bit a pity that you can't show the full world that we as a buyer always see. And that's really something that we're playing with now, to just give the floor and to just show a lot of pieces of a brand. And we do it in collaboration with the brands, of course, because we can't buy everything. And it works really well. Up until now, with all the brands that we did it, we almost had a turnover in 3 days what we would normally do of that brand in a whole season.
Wow, I think that's really. I don't know who has working in a store here, but that's that's such a good result. I think.
And today, I recently, like really today, I made up with my assistant. We were thinking like maybe we should do a summer version somewhere outside, you know? Maybe we should do 3 days of this and this brand outside somewhere in a garden. So we're really trying to play to do things differently.
Yeah, I will be over. We all be. Thank you so much, Ilse. Thank you for this slightly weird connection, but we heard you loud and clear, and I think it's a very important message that needs to be told, and keep telling it. And yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
I love that accent. We'll do the same later. We shimmy to the side. Anro, I'm so glad that she came back and tell this story.
Super cool story.
So cool. And
I was like, oh, maybe she can do something in our store, in the museum. I was like, it's so inspiring to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, because let's move back a little bit. You were saying like you worked in fashion and in journalism.
Yeah.
And then?
So I started out as a journalist, and I love telling stories, and I love fashion. So that's something that's always been like a part of me and who I am. And I made a switch at some point, and I started working for PR agencies, telling stories of brands, and I really enjoyed doing that. But the longer I was doing that, the more I was educating myself along the way, figuring out how polluting the industry is, and how we're abusive of people and the planet. And at a certain point, and I think maybe people recognize it with food, like the more you know about food and how we produce food and how the bio industry works, the less meat I ate. And the same thing happened with me with clothing. And it was a very gradually progressing internally, basically. I still loved telling stories and fashion, so it was very difficult for me to find an organization for me where I could do the same, but basically switch teams and try to help the industry.
Yeah.
So it took me several years, but I finally found Fashion for Good, which is by all means my dream job in every way of the...
Where were they? Where were they in their
Well,
development?
they didn't exist yet,
Okay.
so that's why it took me so long to find them. But we were born in March 2017. And what Fashion for Good is trying to do, and I'm heading up marketing and comms there, what we're trying to do is change the system, and we try to do that through different programs. So on the one hand, we're an innovation platform, and we work with big brands and retailers and manufacturers, and we search for innovators throughout the supply chain. So from a material to a dyeing solution, to a recycling methodology, to a transparency solution, to consumer apps. It can be anything throughout the world of fashion, even retail solutions or different types of packaging. And we search for innovators worldwide, and they're often startups. And those startups basically have all the solutions that we need with all the problems we're facing. But the problem is those startups don't know those brands and don't have enough money to do their work on a big scale. So what we're trying to do is we connect those brands with those innovations. So I always say we're a research and development department on steroids. We have an accelerator program, a scaling program, and a fund. So we can help all those startups with whatever they need so they can be used on a big scale.
So you go out sourcing, or they come and find you?
We do both.
Okay.
We go to universities, to research institutes, to any type of conferences, to using our online channels. And sometimes they find us, so that's great. So we try to build that bridge for those brands and those innovators. But it's great that brands produce fashion in a better way, but if we keep buying the way we're buying, nothing's changing. So we said, okay, it's great that we have this solution, which is a massive machine to find those people and to move those big brands, but it's super important that consumers educate themselves and start to buy differently and learn more.
And you do that as well?
Yeah, so we have a museum for that.
Yeah, if you say museum in Amsterdam, I just think of the Rijks, or
so
like antiques and art. So what kind of museum do you have?
So yeah, our museum is an interactive museum on Rokin in the city center of Amsterdam, at the back end of the Kalverstraat, which is the most commercial shopping street in the city. So I'm super proud we're there because it's symbolical and the perfect location for what we're doing. But the museum is telling different stories. So we have 3 departments. We explain the history of fashion, how we came to fast fashion today. We have a supply chain exhibit where we explain how a t-shirt is made from start to finish, so you can really understand what sustainability means. So it's not just about the material, it's also about the dyeing and the finishing and the transportation and people who make it. So we really try to explain from start to finish how complicated it actually is if you want to do things in a sustainable way. Then on the ground floor, we have the Now Today, which is a shop. Yeah. It's not as awesome as the concept store we've just heard about, but it's a pretty nice shop. And we showcase sustainable products of today. And then the top floor is innovations of the future, and those are the innovators that we work with those big brands.
And is the museum is for the shoppers that are on the Kalverstraat, or is it for people in fashion?
Yeah, it's basically a museum for anyone, because if you know a lot about fashion, I can assure you, you will learn about innovations you've never heard before in our museum. But if you
give an example.
I think everybody knows apple leather, but do you know about
everyone knows
apple leather made from pectin from apples, apple waste, or maybe biodegradable glitter made from eucalyptus, which is pretty awesome because glitter is plastic, and we all know the plastic problem. So we have a lot of awesome innovators that you can see, touch, feel, but everything is tied together with a bracelet. So if you enter the museum, you receive an RFID bracelet. And
what kind of bracelet?
A radio frequency identification bracelet.
Of course, I knew that.
But it's just a bracelet, so you can just put it on.
Yeah.
With that bracelet, you can walk through the museum and you can collect actions that change your behavior and help you along the way of being a better consumer. So it can help you with washing your clothing colder because it's better for the environment, or buying secondhand instead of buying something new.
What do you mean you pick up behaviors? You come out of the museum and you never do that again? Or?
No, so the bracelet has an RFID chip and it basically follows you around. So we have action stations throughout the museum and you can tap your bracelet on and you can say, I like this action, I like to watch a documentary, I like to wash cold, I like to trade my closet with my friend, because then you don't buy something new and you still have something new. So you collect all of those actions throughout the building, and then at the end of the visit, you can also take a selfie and make your own T-shirt.
Why are you looking at me like that? Oh my goodness.
Like a selfie, no?
Yes. Oh, okay. So you're making actually a little checklist. You get a little, okay.
And then at the end of the visit, you can select your gift, you can select your favorite T-shirt design, you can select your favorite actions, and then you email that to yourself as a sort of a reminder or a to-do list.
Yeah.
But the things are fun.
Yes.
Like, and I think that's the main thing. Like, you know, this topic is heavy and complicated, and it needs to be fun. In order for me to move and get moving and keep changing, I want to do fun stuff. I don't want to like do my homework and cry while, you know.
No,
it's.
But you say it has to be fun. But I mean, it is a serious topic.
Yeah,
but you want to. But you think maybe people move more.
I think behavioral change doesn't work. Like it's like raising a kid. If you keep telling the kid, you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong, I don't think the kid is going to show good behavior.
No.
So I think if you say, this is fun, why don't you trade your sweater with your best friend? You're like, hey, it sounds fun, I want to do this. So we're trying to help people change their behavior in a fun way. So that's what the museum does.
And what's the feedback? Do you know, I mean, how do you know if that's working?
So once people have created their good fashion action plan, then they get a survey. So we ask them for feedback. We also ask people feedback when they're in the museum. And 99% of the time, people love it because they learn something new and they feel like they can make a change. And now people finally like have very tangible actions on how to contribute to change. So physically and virtually, we get really good feedback. What we actually do is we build an online movement on Instagram, on all social media. No TikTok yet, but other than that, we have all social media.
What do you mean with a movement? Because, I mean, we're all in this movement.
Yeah, I think in order for us to change the industry, we need each other. And what we're trying to do with the museum, as well as on our social media channels, is build a movement where we ask questions, educate our audience, try to work together towards a better future. So whether that's a webinar or like a workshop.
And is it mainly in the Netherlands? I mean, or are you international? Are there more? Are there more of you? Are there more fashion for goods? So where are we going?
We're the only one in the way we work, quite unique. You do have more startup programs around the world, which is great because we need them. But you don't have an interactive, sustainable fashion museum anywhere else. And you don't have a building that contains a co-working space and a museum and all of our offices.
It's a real serious operation then. And I mean, who sees you? Who knows what you're doing? Because I mean, you don't fund all this by selling tickets in the museum, I guess.
Yeah, so we do have an online movement that's international, and we do everything in English on purpose, so we can reach a bigger audience because we need everyone.
I can tell you are doing everything. It's very smart.
But yeah, the museum is here, so all of the events, the physical events are here. Digital events are available globally. But yeah, we need as many people as possible to join. So.
But do you get funding like from the government or from the industry? Or
yeah, we're a bit of a hybrid organization in the sense that the innovation platform is paid by the big brands that we work with, which is great because they ultimately need to do the actual work. So they pay us to find those innovators, but they also ultimately need to implement all of those innovations. So
so you mean like big brands that aren't actually as sustainable yet as you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of big brands that are our partners are paying us to find those innovators and help them driving those pilots. And on the other hand, the museum is a foundation, or a stichting in Dutch, with an AMFI status, which means we're there to change the community in the way we think.
Okay.
And we're non-for-profit, so we need, for the museum acts like a museum, and we're no Rijksmuseum.
No.
So we do need funding and subsidies and that sort of thing. So we try to be as creative as possible with workshops and events, with ticket sales that are always as cheap as possible, because we want everyone with any type of wallet to be able to join. But we are still looking for funding as well, yeah.
And is it, so where do you want to go? When can you close your museum? Or do you have like, okay, in 5 years we really want at least, because everything that's being like the startups, what they come up with, like the eucalyptus glitter or the apple leather, I mean, is everything going to be in production and be there forever, or is it just like a...
Yeah, so yes and no. We are betting on the best innovations that we come across. So we really do our research to make sure that we're investing in the right innovators, that we really think that technology or the mechanism can work. Some of those innovators don't make it, but we do try to do our best to prevent that and help them as much as possible. And I think it's important to understand that piloting, it used to take, you know, a new material development from idea to implementation used to take around 30 years.
Pardon?
30 years.
Oh my God.
And we don't have that much time. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, because we need to work together and implement those solutions as fast as possible. So some pilots are ready to implement today. Some materials or mechanisms need more development, so it takes a little bit longer. So yeah, we're trying to work with as much as possible, as many as possible, with as many brands as possible, so we can make a change and as
in
fast.
the meantime, the consumers, us, we need to like...
Yeah, I think we need to
slow down.
Yeah, we need to slow down, reappreciate our closet, swap with people, and keep buying, but buy less and buy better, and making it last. And I think to not buy is also not the answer, because at the end of the line, the people in mainly South Asia, where they're producing your garments, there's families on the line as well that need to need to be fed and
their
live.
living. Yes.
Yeah. So not buying is not the option, but buying less and buying better is a.
And fashion can be really amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are all wearing clothing, so even if you don't like
very
fashion,
glad we are.
You know.
Oh, well.
Next level COVID next year, you know.
So because I'm just gonna pop over to your neighbor. Sorry, we kept you waiting so long.
That's okay. That's okay. It's an interesting story. So
Yeah, I know, and we're gonna mix it up in a bit, because you're a coordinator, lecturer, fashion and visual culture at AMFI.
Yes.
So you are really very important. I mean, of course, everybody, what they're doing their part, but you are really starting at the beginning, like the students, like the next generation fashion makers and fashion brains. And what made me very happy is that you are really, you guys at AMFI have changed your whole program. And I read in your press release in March that the themes creative technology, sustainability, innovation, even as diversity and inclusion are going to be the central pillars of your study.
Yeah, so we have been through like innovation program in which we've, with people from inside and outside of AMFI, we have looked at the education itself and thinking about, like, you know, what's happening now in the industry and what does the industry need and what can we, you know, we offer, the next generation of students, and basically it's the future of the industry, and we can make a change there. So our roles can be really important there as an institute, as an educational institute. So we decided to look at that.
Yeah, because before the education was more geared like what the industry wants and what consumer wants, maybe, and now it's more like the other way around.
I think we were more focused on individual expressions and individual development through education, and which of course there are also what we call change makers there with their own message, but we're now much more focused on how can we have a more broader perspective. So not just look at individual development, but also individual development while looking at the impact on the world, the impact of the industry, the changes and the inspirational examples there.
So that means
it's more of
you get a
combination.
different student. So if somebody who comes to you and say, oh, I just want to be into fashion, that's just not, they won't make it. They can't come through.
That's not really the idea anymore. And I think we also attract, with the changes that we have, we attract a different audience, like a different type of students as well. Because, I mean, it has to inspire and interest you to tell a story and to make a change. So, it's a different approach. Different type of
also
students.
what we said, different kind of student. Are they more like activists kind of students, or are they more aware, or is it, how does that go?
Yeah, they are more activists, but it's also a generation of people who are naturally more activists as well. So we notice that in their work and in what they want to do with their work. So they naturally have that in them, I think. And I think the new program offers more for them to develop that. It's also more hybrid. So where before we were working with 3 different departments of branding and business and development and design, it's now more hybrid, and there's more collaboration between those 3 departments. And I think that also helps because, that changes the idea of a system as well, in already thinking about like how can you collaborate from the start rather than
collaboration is something that's going to be very important anyway later on. And where do you come in? Because you,
I come in mainly at the 3rd and 4th year. So I coordinate a fashion, film, and photography course. And within the course, students create individually. They create fashion photography, storytelling fashion photography. So it's not necessarily editorial photography or lookbook photography, but it's very much based on storytelling and meaningful imagery. And in the second part, they create in small groups, they create fashion films. And those are also storytelling fashion films, often with like a critical note or message.
So because maybe it's a weird question, us being here at a fashion film festival, but what exactly do you think is a fashion film? Because, I know even people in who should know, or they, maybe a small thing to say that when Esther was going to, Esther Polsen, creative director of ELLE, when they said, oh, Esther is going to be in the judge panel, like judging all these films, some colleagues said like, oh my God, that's going to take, because they thought she had to watch like 100 movies of up 1.5 hours. But it's a really big change in what's conceived a fashion film.
Yeah, there are many definitions of it, and I also don't think you can have one definition of it, because
do you have one definition, like what it is in your program?
Yeah, so our definition is that it's that we think it's important that it's storytelling that tells something about fashion, and our films are quite long therefore as well, because we do think it's important that there's certain meaning in there that's not too static. And it's an interesting question, because we have a lot of discussions as well with students with, what is fashion in film? Like, is it that you actually film garments, or is it also that you tell a story about fashion, or is the fashion actually in there? Is it about a designer, or is it about everyday wear or behavior around fashion? But generally, I think it's a combination of those things, and it's also that there's a certain tangibility, or that you can almost feel like you can touch what's in the screen. I think that's often an important one.
So then they are being all activistic. They're seeing all these things in the fashion world that are going on. I can imagine that it can be still a bit depressive, especially if you still have to start. So how does that, do you get only very like moody movies? Or how does that?
The funny thing is, we had a screening this morning, and I was looking at the films, and they were actually quite moody, but not in a negative
moody
way.
No.
I think moody, but also showing the beauty of it in a moody way, maybe in a moody style. I think, yeah, they're not all moody. They are still no, but I think it's.
But I can imagine that
It's-
that's difficult to bring that together. Same for you, like to bring something that's educating and
Yeah.
but also tell a story.
Yeah, it is. It's sometimes difficult, and it also involves looking critically at the industry, but also at the same time looking at inspiring examples. For example, our students also visit Fashion for Good, the museum, and I think looking at those examples, and for the students who create the films, they start with a designer who has an inspiring and interesting story, often a critical story. So I think those are the more, almost a translation of the problem into, the language of a designer. And
do they come up with? Are they thinking in solutions? Because I think it's amazing that you are now, educating or helping. I think it's very much working together with a generation that is going to actually really make a change. I really hope so.
Yeah.
So when is that? When are they? When do you think you're ready to go out? Or
I think it's happening gradually. I mean, as our school is such a small part of the fashion system, but I think our students can make a big change. And I also noticed from the industry, and like you said as well, we had a talk about collaborating, and I think the industry really is eager for new inputs from a new generation and a new way of looking at creativity and what fashion can do and can be. So I think eventually there will be a change, but I think it will be gradually.
So do you think, is there like a I mean, I'm not into the education part, but is there do you have links with other fashion schools in the world, and do you think that that they are also changing their curriculum, or they? Because that's what
we do.
Needed, I guess.
We do, and I think it's just like having these connections and also helping each other with that. And but still, I think it's a challenge also to even do it within your own educational program. But we definitely do look at that and use our network not only within schools but also with the industry. So we are a school that also actively involves the industry in our education, in the projects themselves, but also, for example, the films my students make, they start with a designer with their latest collection, for example, and so that's like an interaction between, and they're often designers from other schools, for example, coming from Arnhem or sometimes Eindhoven or our own school. So that's also a network that that makes that students get seen and create content together.
So are you hopeful for the future? I mean, if I hear this, I'm like, okay, there's there's all glimpses of light. Do you think that's actually really going to make a
when I look
difference?
at the students and their work, I'm very hopeful, and I hope that by keep on doing this, we get lots of new students in every year, and students keep on graduating. So I hope that they can actually make a big difference eventually. So I am hopeful.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Thank you. Is there anyone who has a question for the ladies? Niet allemaal tegelijk. No questions. Shall we round it up? Or do you have a question for each other? No, you're already talking.
We're already working. Yeah, exactly. We already talk, and we've helped with the curriculum, and we also create master classes, and we also try to help with education. By no means we're a school, but
no. But
I think keep learning, keep educating yourself.
Nice, great. And one last one. Where is the movies your students make, the films?
They're on Vimeo.
Okay.
So you can watch them there.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So I have a question for you actually, which is maybe interesting, because we were talking about it a little bit. I think you're one of the initiatives that also is maybe looking for some input from a new generation of students, or students who I think have affiliation with what you do. What is it that you're looking for? I think what's the new input that you'd like to get from these people?
Good question. So I think initially, it's too easy to say a new generation will change the industry. I think we all need to, play our part. And I think looking at what we're trying to do with Fashion for Good is to translate the need for change in a positive, empowering way without diminishing, any horrible things in the industry. And I think telling that story without being very gloomy I find that very challenging. I'm not a filmmaker, so I have, I wouldn't know how to go around it. So what we try to do with our language is make it light and bright and find a hybrid between fashion, innovation, and sustainability, and that's sort of a language on its own. And I would love to explore what the other options are, like how in different ways can you make films, tell stories, engage people to be part of the, like we call it a good fashion community, but by just be part of the change that we so hardly need. Tell stories that are engaging, empowering. I think I would love to see more of those types of stories, I think. And also in different formats, like not just Instagram or Instagram Reels, but also TikToks, or maybe a super long movie that you're like, oh my God, it takes forever. I'm like, this change takes forever. Maybe it should be, like, I would love to see more stories like that. So yes, we're gonna
I think you
talk after this.
Talk a bit more.
Interesting, yeah.
Okay.
No, I think, and especially these different mediums, they offer also like a different way of storytelling. So yeah, I think that's definitely interesting to look at. Yeah.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna round it up. Thank you very much. I think it's amazing what you all stand for and you're doing. And I know we all have to take our part, but I also love to have like this light in the end. Like, okay, it will be. It will get better if we all. And in the meantime, we keep as consumers as well, and like we do with our readers, we keep educating it. And thank you very much. I think after this talk, the program continues with a few more films. And thank you very much for hanging out. And thank you, Ilse, for her surprise act. Thank you very much.
Thank you.